Hey guys, Dan here with this week's TV news and reviews. I actually get a twofer this week because we did the Is Peacock Worth It video a few days ago, and typically that is my one and only TV review show for the week. But I've fallen a little bit behind here between taking vacation last week and just whatever. So there were a handful of shows that have come out over the last week or two that I haven't gotten to yet, so I figured, you know what, I've got some extra time this week, so let's throw you another entirely new TV news and review show. Typically, in the last couple weeks anyway, we've had just 3 new shows and then the big binge because it's summertime and the pandemic and everything shut Hollywood down. So, but there's enough shows in the can that this week there were actually a bunch of new shows out. So we have 6 new reviews for you. No big binge for the week, but we're going to do some TV news and then 6 different new shows that we're going to review. So let's talk about the news here first. We always start with renewals and cancellations. Not too many this week, but we do have Hannah renewed for Season 3 on Amazon. Now this is based on a movie. I actually think I have the movie. The agents are like right at my butt here. Alright, well, it's underneath. But I do have the movie Hannah. It's with Cate Blanchett and, the girl that I love that was in Brooklyn, Saoirse Ronan. I didn't really like the movie that much. I gave it like a C+. And I watched it again and gave it about the same grade. And then I tried this show when it first came on a couple years ago. And I also didn't really like the show that much. I only gave it, I think, 1 episode. So, I don't really care about this, but obviously it's doing well enough. The Season 2 premiere was just a few weeks ago, so obviously people are taking to it, so they renewed it. And then a couple of cancellations. Briar Patch, which I reviewed earlier this year, which featured Rosario Dawson. That was on USA, and that's going to be one and done, 1 season only. But what's nice about it is USA was kind of thinking of it as an anthology series, so they were going to start fresh next season with new characters anyway. So this is a closed-end 1-season show, which is kind of nice. We don't always get that. So I think it was 10 episodes it ran, but there will be no Season 2 of Briar Patch. And then Kidding, featuring Jim Carrey, or starring Jim Carrey, I should say, on Showtime. That has been canceled after 2 seasons. I never got to watch that. I wanted to. I actually have the first season downloaded, but eventually I will get to that because I love Jim Carrey. I've seen almost all of his movies, and obviously, go back to the In Living Color days. But yeah, I mean, I've heard it's a good show. It's dark, I hear, which I feel like is in Jim Carrey's sort of mental wheelhouse these days. I just heard an hour-long interview with him on Marc Maron last week, and yeah, he's a heavy dude right now. But yeah, so I will try to check out that show at some point. So that's Kidding. And then we have a couple things moved here on the schedule. So Survivor, that is going to be officially off of CBS's fall schedule. They had really hoped to work something out with Fiji. We talked about this a few weeks ago on this show, because Fiji is where they're now filming, and Fiji really has almost 0 coronavirus cases, so they were hoping to sort of make an arrangement with them. But of course, nobody really wants America to travel there these days, so they said, no dice, we're not going to let you in right now at this moment. So they have no Survivor for the fall. So that's going to be moved to the spring. The Amazing Race, which was going to air in the summer, got moved to the fall. So The Amazing Race is going to move up an hour and go in the Survivor time slot, and then they're going to just hopefully be able to film a couple episodes of the TV show SWAT by the time fall season starts, because that was going to be in their January schedule, and they've now moved that up to the fall, which I still don't know when the fall is going to be. Like, I don't think it's going to be traditional 3rd week of September. I really think we're looking at, even if Hollywood could reopen in August, you still got to write show. Well, I guess they're probably writing shows now, but you still got to, produce all these shows. So I think whenever the powers that be decide that Hollywood, California can reopen, or wherever they shoot a lot of these shows, I think we're still a month out from that, from being on television. But we'll see. Also, Saturday Night Live is possibly looking at a return to live episodes in the fall. Now, obviously, they're in New York, which has been quite the hotbed for coronavirus since the beginning. But they are looking at ways to do a live show. It's probably not going to be with an audience, but obviously they had the 3 SNL at Home episodes in April and May. The last live episode was with Daniel Craig. That was back in March, before James Bond was supposed to come out. And then, of course, before he even hosted, they shelved that movie for November, which at this point, who even knows if that's going to happen. But they're looking at ways to sort of circumvent the whole at-home experience and bring it to the studio with their hair and makeup people and all of that, but probably not a live audience. So that is possible for the fall. And then The Falcon and Winter Soldier has been delayed on Disney Plus because that has not been able to be completed. So that was supposed to start actually in August, and that's been delayed sort of indefinitely. I think a lot of these shows are going to get the indefinitely type fate. And then finally, the Nick Cannon show has moved to 2021. He had a talk show that was supposed to start in the fall. That has been moved, and I think due to really no coronavirus reasons at all. You know, if you haven't been following the news, he made some potentially anti-Semitic comments like a week or two ago on his podcast, and he had Professor Griff on, from formerly of Public Enemy, who, you know, had some very interesting things to say of his own. As far as I remember, I was a bit young when Professor Griff got kicked out of not NWA, Public Enemy, but I feel like he said, I don't know if they were anti-Semitic, but he said some things that were like, whoa, dude, like, you're off the deep end, you're out of the group. I remember that vaguely, but I don't really remember what he said. But Nick Cannon, it took me a couple of articles to actually find out what he said. You know, look, it didn't offend me, but I'm not Jewish, so I didn't really... I can see why people would be upset, let's say that. You know, he basically compared, you know, black people to the Jews, and saying that, you know, the black people were really the persecuted people. And it's like, dude, it's not a contest, first of all. Like, you gotta stop with that. But anyway, so CBS Viacom already cut ties with him after that. So the Wild and Out stuff that he was still doing, that's gone. But Fox has said, look, we're going to keep Nick Cannon on for Masked Singer. You know, he's shown us that he's apologetic in his actions and this and that. So he's going to stay on for Masked Singer, but the talk show that was supposed to premiere this fall, that has now been moved to 2021. So, you know, I don't know what they're going to fill that space with, because I believe a lot of stations had already bought into the Nick Cannon show. So they may air a year of reruns for whatever show he's replacing. I'm not sure what show he'd be replacing. I'm trying to think of what... I mean, Kelly Clarkson got renewed, so I know it's not her. I can't remember what all... Yeah, like, Steve Harvey's been off for a year. Kelly Clarkson replaced Steve Harvey. So, anyway, I don't know, but it's going to premiere in 2021 is the point there. All right, so other news. This is kind of a bummer. I mean, I don't watch this show, but Tom Bergeron out as the host of Dancing with the Stars. He's been with the show since the beginning. So 20 years or so he's been with the show. They're about to enter their 29th cycle. Because for a while they were doing 2 cycles a year. Now it's been down to just 1 the last few years. But that's why it's been like 20 years, but 29, they call it seasons. But it's not really seasons. It's cycles. But point being, this was news to him. You know, he did not make this decision himself. But he's out. Erin Andrews is out as sort of the co-host. And she's been a part of it for a few years. I think 6 years, maybe. I didn't write that part down, but I think it's 6 years that she was on it. And look, like I said, I don't really watch the show. I've seen a few episodes here and there. Like when Adam Carolla was on, I watched a few of the episodes. He got off pretty early, though. I think he might have been second episode of that season. But he's just such a nice guy. Like, I've always liked Tom Bergeron. You know, I see him in interviews. He's funny. He was great. He was one of the Masked Singers. Speaking of which, he was one of the Masked Singers last season. He just seems like a fun guy, you know. So that was definitely kind of a bummer. But they're going to bring Tyra Banks in as host, which I think if you're going to replace Tom Bergeron, do it with her. She's a seasoned veteran on the reality competition circuit. And again, she seems like a very nice person too. So Tyra's going to be in. I don't know when they're going to resume this show. Obviously, they had hoped to do it in the fall, but that obviously is a bit up in the air. And then speaking of ABC, this is really interesting. ABC World News Tonight with David Muir last week was the most watched show of the week of anything. Prime time, daytime, morning, anything on network. It is the most watched show of the week. I think that includes cable as well. In total viewers, in adults 18 to 49. That kind of blew me away. I feel like, I don't know, 18 to 49 people don't watch the news nearly as much as some of the older people, but it also won in the 25 to 54 segment as well. No nightly news show has done this in at least 29 years. Nielsen started monitoring electronically in 1991, and no network news show has done that since Nielsen started doing it electronically. So, I mean, it's pretty wild. It averaged 8.97 million viewers, while the number one primetime show, 60 Minutes, went with 7.05. So, also, you know, a news show, but and NBC Nightly News, though, even beat that. So not only is ABC, you know, the number one show on television right now, apparently, but NBC Nightly News also beat 60 Minutes by about 500,000 viewers. So, you know, they're doing some interesting things. The number one show, by the way, in 18 to 49, which I thought would have been America's Got Talent, but it's not. It was actually the Titan Games on NBC with The Rock. So, okay. But, yeah, that's just wild to me, especially the whole 18 to 49 demo. I don't really know any of the news anchors now. I was down the shore last week, like I said, and my parents have cable down there. So, you know, we were watching some shows that had commercials for the news. Nora O'Donnell does the CBS News. Never heard of her. David Muir, I feel like I've heard of, because he's been doing ABC for a while. NBC, I know was Brian Williams for a while. I think it might be Lester Holt now. I don't remember. But, like, when I was growing up, they were all the same people for, like, I mean, decades. It was, you know, Tom Brokaw was on NBC. Peter Jennings was ABC. My family was an ABC family, so we always watched the ABC World News Tonight, Peter Jennings. And then CBS had Dan Rather. And they were on for, I mean, pretty much since I was born, just about. I think Tom Brokaw maybe took over in the early 80s. But, like, as far as I remember, probably since when I was 5 or 6, it was those three guys until, I mean, even after 9/11. I mean, they were on for my entire childhood for sure, and then even several years after that. So now I don't know, but it's very interesting, very cool, and certainly we're at a time where news from a source like ABC or NBC that is not so biased as some of the cable news stations or internet, you know, sites, I think is very important. All right, so we close the news with reboots, and there's just one this week. In Treatment is maybe coming back on HBO. That was Gabriel Byrne, and it was an interesting format. I never got to see it. You know, I've never had HBO, but what they did was they ran the show 5 nights a week. They ran it like stripped, basically, like a syndicated show, and they would have, he is a therapist, and so each day of the week was a different person that was in his chair. You know, they were, my Monday appointment is this person, Tuesday appointment is this person, and so that's how it ran. And then Friday was his therapy. He went to see his therapist, and so that was Friday. It's such an interesting concept. The show ran about 2 years, but I would love to get my hands on some of those episodes. I don't think it's ever been released on DVD. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but if it was, I'm sure it's probably an expensive one to do because, you know, it was every night of the week for, maybe not for 2 years straight like a soap opera would be, but, you know, it probably ran, I don't know, 10 weeks or something, and then stopped, and then season 2 was another 10 weeks, or whatever it was. But that's still, you know, 10 weeks times 5, that's still 50 episodes per season, or whatever. I'm just kind of making numbers up, but very interesting. I would love it if they brought that back. I would definitely check it out, and probably catch some of the earlier ones, too, to compare. But, all right, let's get to the new shows of the week. Let's do some reviews. And like it's been, a lot of these are in the reality/competition vein, as we've had all summer long. It's been every week there's been some sort of competition show or reality show that I've dealt with, and here at least 3 are 4. This week there are 4 of the 6 shows are competition shows, so or at the very least reality shows. So let's talk about them. I think probably the highest profile is this Tough as Nails on CBS. This is a new reality show as a competition where basically they have people who are in tough type jobs like construction or military or very physically demanding jobs, let's say, and they go to different job sites in different competitions to test their toughness, and one person is eliminated per episode, and they're all sort of real world job sites. Like the first episode they had them like laying bricks, and they had them like delivering items on this little obstacle course in a wheelbarrow, that kind of thing, and so they are tested with their strength, endurance, and mental toughness as well, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a competition much like a lot of the weekly competition shows. It's not like the Titan Games, I feel like, is just episodic. It's different contestants each episode. But this is more like a Survivor or a Amazing Race. And I make the Amazing Race comparison because the same host is on here. Phil, I never have known how to pronounce this dude's last name. I used to watch Amazing Race too. Is it Kehogan? Or Keogan or something, but he is the host here. He just seems like a nice dude. He seems like an affable guy, and basically it's the same shtick he does on Amazing Race. His patter is basically the same. So his hosting duties are fine. I don't think he's necessarily adding anything new to this show specifically, but at the end, what is it? $200,000 is the big cash prize on this one, plus a Ford Super Duty truck. So Ford, obviously one of the sponsors of this. I believe they sponsored Survivor for a long time too. I don't know if they still do, but for a long time they did anyway. Here's what I liked about this show. This is not something I'm going to continue watching. It's not really in my wheelhouse. I don't watch a lot of reality competitions anyway, but this one specifically does not really speak to me. I don't care about, doing tough jobs and stuff like that. But what I think is very interesting, and they made this pretty clear even in the first episode, as we're getting to know these people and their jobs outside of this and their families and whatnot, we see a lot of different ways that people interpret toughness. So a lot of people, obviously are talking about their physical toughness and the job skills and stuff. But like I said, sort of in the bio of the show, mental toughness is a big capacity too. And so we get these sort of interview snippets with the participants talking about how they've also been emotionally tough for their family in this instance, or mentally tough because of this that happened in their life. And so I think that's really great to see and to showcase, because it makes people go a little bit deeper into, okay, so you're not just talking about, physical toughness, laying bricks, whatever. You're talking about mental agility. And look, all of these types of shows deal with that. Amazing Race certainly deals with it. Survivor, Karma, that HBO Max show I reviewed a few weeks ago, deals with that, on a child level. But, it doesn't really get talked about that much on certainly Amazing Race. Survivor, they talk about it a lot because they talk about the food starvation and sort of the mental toughness to think that you're hungry or think that you're full and that kind of thing. So that comes into play. But Amazing Race, it's more like, how can we screw the other team over? How can we make it to this course faster? But there's a little bit of talk about that sort of stuff, like when they're eating gross food and they have to sort of mentally prepare for it. But this is like real world mental toughness they're talking about, and I think that's really important. So I like that. I also like that they've chosen a wide range of people, because there's some older people, there's some people in their 50s and 60s on this show trying to compete. So I think that's good to see as well. Some older people can also still be very tough. There was a show that Netflix did that I reviewed called, was it 100 Questions? I think it was, where they had the different age groups in different competitions, and the older age group, like the 50s and 60s, were typically the ones that didn't do so hot in the competitions, but then every so often there'd be one competition where they like smoked everybody. So Yeah, it's interesting to see the different demographics in shows like this. But again, this is not something for me. I'm not really going to watch any more of it. But it was interesting to see. I can appreciate that they brought Phil in for a name face to be on the show as host, but I didn't really think he was doing anything different than he does on Amazing Race. It's the exact same type of patter and stuff, so that didn't really bring anything new to the table for me. And the competitions thus far are still very physical, so I'd like to see maybe some more mental gymnastics as we go on. But I didn't really get that in the first episode. So, it's an okay show for this type of genre. I'm going to leave Tough as Nails with a B-. Up next is Down to Earth with Zac Efron. We go over to Netflix for this. This is not a competition show, but it is a reality type show. It's a docu-series, basically, is what they call these types of shows. And it's Zac Efron and his buddy, I guess, Darren Olean, who is from Minnesota. And he was vaguely famous, I guess, because he was married to actress Eliza Coupe. And he's also executive producer here. I guess they're friends. I don't really know the history of these two dudes, but basically it revolves around Zac Efron traveling around the world to all these, crazy cool locations and focusing on sort of things that go on in these types of places, things that are specific points of interest for each of these places, I guess you could say. But there's also a big push in the show for environmental issues, living green, sustainable living, that sort of thing. So we see a lot of that as well. There's 8 episodes up so far, and in episode 1, he goes to Iceland. These are about 40 minutes each, so they're not quite full hours, but it's not that short either. Boy, I really had mixed feelings about this. I like Zac Efron as a person, I guess, but I like him as an actor in certain projects. I don't think he is a good comedic film actor, but I also think most of the choices he's been given here have not been good. Like every movie that he's been able to star in that's like an R-rated comedy, Baywatch, Dirty Grandpa, That Awkward Moment, like they're all just bad movies. Neighbors is the only exception to that. I think he's good in Neighbors, but it's not really due to him. It's due to Seth Rogen and Dave Franco a little bit, and that whole collective. But I'm not going to review his movies. I'm just saying I think he's a bit hit or miss on the big screen. I think he's great in musicals. Hairspray, Greatest Showman, obviously High School Musical series back in the day. I think that's kind of where his wheelhouse is. But so here we get to see Zac Efron, the person, and more so than I think I've ever seen him. And to be honest, I wasn't too impressed. I mean, here's the deal. I think he comes off as not always interested in the subject matter, and I think that is. I think it speaks to more him as a person. I think he has sort of a laid-back kind of personality, but that does not, to me, lend itself to a travel show. If you have a travel host, you want them to be excited and, asking all sorts of questions, and he doesn't really do that. It's a lot of like, whoa, or, oh, that's really cool, but like, then it sort of just ends there, or, his face just isn't, his mind isn't telling his face if he's excited about something, because everything just seems very, lackadaisical, and in a travel show, that's not what I want to see. Now, he does go to really cool places, but he also doesn't spend nearly enough time at each one. So, he's in Iceland this whole first episode, and he goes to, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 different places, but that means each one only gets a few minutes. And there's definitely some education aspect to this. Like he in voiceovers, he will tell us, how, so and so becomes more sustainable, or how oil can do this, or or whatever it is. And they eat some exotic foods and stuff. And so his voiceover stuff is I think fairly interesting. I mean, I didn't really retain a whole lot of it, but I was watching more for my review version rather than for education purposes. But But overall, this was a real mixed bag. I was very disappointed in this. I was pretty excited because I like Zac Efron, but he is not a good travel host. He's just not. So at the end of the day here, I'm going to leave Down to Earth with Zac Efron with a C-. Disappointing for sure. So the next one we have is Indian Matchmaking. This is on Netflix as well. This is a dating reality show. And here we see, you know, India is obviously known for its arranged marriages. So we actually have sort of a famous marriage consultant that is, I guess, the main star of the show, I guess you could say. Seema Taparia, and she is from Mumbai, and she has, you know, many years of matchmaking experience in the Indian community, and she actually was on this other show called A Suitable Girl. That was actually a documentary film. I never saw it, but she was sort of the subject of that. So she's been doing this for a long time. That movie came out in 2007, I believe. So, and then we have, you know, sort of the parents of the people, and then we have the people themselves and what they want and all of this. I think this show is interesting from a cultural perspective, but, you know, I'm a person that doesn't like to look up a lot of reviews of something before I review it or even before I watch it. I want to just kind of immerse myself in it, collect my own thoughts about it. I will typically look at the Rotten Tomatoes score and the audience score on Rotten just to see where I fall in line, I guess. You know, it doesn't typically change what I think of something, but if something's super high, it will cause me to sort of reflect on it a little more if I didn't like it. Sometimes it changes my mind, sometimes it does not. But for this, I decided to actually look up a couple of Indian-specific reviews to see how India might view this show. Because I know how I viewed it as a white person, and to me it was like, okay, this is rather eye-opening, this is interesting. Obviously, I know about the whole arranged marriage thing, but, you know, where do we go from here? What are the intricacies of it? That kind of thing. So to me, it was a bit interesting. I did not think these people were necessarily, you know, caricatures, because as far as I know, that's how, you know, people do act in these matchmaking situations and the arranged marriages over in India. Just from the things I've seen. I mean, I haven't taken deep dives into it, but it's interesting because people in the Indian community don't really care for this show. They find it to be, you know, very sort of a little too, you know, inside what they're doing. And one actually reviewer, I think to me this would be a positive review because it means it was an accurate reflection of these people. But she said something like, you know, me and my friends actually can't watch this show because it hits too close to home and it's too cringy for us. And so that to me it wasn't really a positive review on her page, but reading the review I was like, well, that sounds like it's positive because it sounds like they really are getting things right. But the other two reviews I read were both very negative about it, saying like it doesn't make their culture look good, and that it's sort of taking the worst aspects of their culture and of their personalities in these matters and sort of amplifying them, which that's probably true, but at the same time, that's all reality shows. Like, when I read that, I thought, all right, I can see how it might specifically be upsetting because it's giving Westerners a you know, misinformation about your culture and your people. But at the same time, when I think like, all right, well, you know, when other cultures look at our white person reality shows and see the Real Housewives and see the Kardashians and see, you know, the Real World and Big Brother, how does that make Americans look? You know, so I even though there reviews that were negative about the portrayal of the Indian culture, I feel like that is sort of the nature of the reality genre, is to amplify people and amplify personalities and amplify cultures. So I will knock it down just a smidge from my original thoughts because of, you know, look, we're in a world right now where stereotyping cultures is not great. So if it leaves Americans with an incorrect impression of Indian culture, that's probably not good. But, you know, the other Indian reviewer was like, well, I can't watch it because it's too cringy. It's too correct. It's too accurate to what we do. And you know, I see a lot of myself in these people, and I don't like that. So, you know, look, to me, that's a mixed bag. But for me personally, I found this show to be entertaining. Again, this is not something that's in my wheelhouse. It's not something I'm going to go back to and watch the rest of the episodes. But I've always found the concept of the arranged marriage to be an interesting one. You know, it's something that has been tradition over there for centuries. And, you know, to me, it just blows my mind. But then at the same time, I think, well, shoot, I'm 42 and still single. So maybe an arranged marriage isn't the worst way to go, you know, when it comes down to it. But it is interesting, all of the different, you know, casts that they have and the different classes of people that they, you know, it's hard to intermix, and you don't want to do that. And that's why, you know, people sort of stay in the class that they're in because of the arranged marriages that way. So it's definitely interesting from several different perspectives, but of course it is still at heart a dating reality show, which is annoying. But I will say it had some tongue-in-cheek humorous moments. Like the one girl was real mad that one of the guys she dated didn't know some sort of like bizarre geographical thing in Bahrain or some country, and so, you know, the people making the checklist for us, the audience, you know, of the things this girl wants, says like, must know that these things are in Bahrain. Like, that was kind of funny. It was kind of tongue-in-cheek. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I found it to be, for a dating show, definitely something a little bit different. Not quite maybe as different as some of the recent Netflix ones, like Love is Blind and stuff, but interesting because it's, you know, a completely new perspective, I think, for a lot of people, if maybe a little bit, you know, over the top in its portrayal of the people. So I'm going to leave Indian Matchmaking with a C+. It's okay. So up next we have Close Enough. This is an animated series. This is our first actually scripted show that we've had so far. This is on HBO Max, and it was created by J.G. Quintel, who does, or did, I should say, the regular show. I don't think that's on anymore. And you can tell immediately because the characters have the same exact design, structure. You know, it's not quite as obvious as certain shows, but it's definitely, like, as soon as you see it, you're like, oh yeah, that's the dude that did the regular show. I've never actually seen the regular show. I've seen clips of it, but I've sort of stayed away from it for one purpose only. We had, when I worked at the Regal movie theaters, we had like a loop in our lobby that ran, I think, maybe 12 to 15 minutes. Like, it was not long. And there was a very, very irritating commercial for the regular show in it. And it was on there for like a month. So I would just hear it constantly, and I was just like, all right, F the regular show. I'm never watching this piece of garbage. Like, I'm so annoyed. But the people I know that watch it really like it, so I'm sure it's probably fine. I'm sure they just chose a very annoying clip to get people's attention or something, but it was not doing it for me. But this show takes a lot of the same, I guess, humor from what I understand about the regular show, and works it into a more adult type show. It's basically about a millennial couple in their early 30s who are bringing up a 5-year-old daughter and living with their divorced friends to kind of save rent in LA. And you know, the voice work, I don't really recognize anybody except for Jason Mantzoukas. You can't really miss his voice. He plays the friend of, you know, one of the divorced people. He plays the husband, and then J.J. Quintel himself plays the lead, you know, character, I guess, and then the wife is played by Gabrielle Walsh. So this is set in 2 15-minute, well, I guess 11 and 12-minute increments. If it was on somewhere with commercials, it would be a half-hour show, basically. But that's what the regular show was. It was 2, you know, 15-minute with commercials segments that ran for a half-hour show. So that's what this show does as well. So I watched the first 2 segments. So I watched, you know, the first 2 11-minute segments to make up, I guess, one show. And it's okay. I think it's way too, like, weird like, part of my problem with a lot of the Cartoon Network shows, and I've talked about this before, is that they're just weird to be weird. Weird for weird's sake. You know, what's the most oddball thing we can think of? Well, let's do that. And to me, that's not necessarily great storytelling. It's one of my main problems in Family Guy. Family Guy, you know, a lot of the humor just comes from random sort of sketches, basically, with very little cohesive plot. And so here we see that as well. And we see really, like, bizarre stuff here. And I'm sure regular show was probably a lot of the same. And I don't know. To me, like, something like Bob's Burgers really hits the mark in that aspect, because Bob's Burgers and The Simpsons, you know, back in the day before it got a little too much like Family Guy, you know, there were definitely, like, out there scenarios and situations and, like, crazy things that happen, and definitely some off-the-wall stuff that couldn't happen in the real world. But it keeps it grounded enough, and it's also, you know, a lot of times part of the plot. These things were just sort of just way out of left field. You know, the entire second episode basically revolves around the wife liking to go to these open houses to sort of get away from people. She meets a guy that also likes to go to open houses to get away from his family, and then there's this daughter who's like a famous singer or actor or something. I think she's an actress that that goes there to kind of get away from everybody in the anonymity. Well, they kind of, you know, decide to, oh, well, let's just kind of hang out in this house for a while, and then they end up in a sitcom and can't figure out how to get out of the sitcom. And there's a laugh track, and it's like, it's so bizarre. To me, it's too bizarre, I'll be honest. You know, and here's one where, like, Rotten Tomatoes has this way up there. For me, it's okay. I get where they're going. I definitely laughed. I mean, it definitely had some funny moments, but it's just so weird for weird's sake. And it's just not my bag. I think it can be interesting if it's more in a long form thing. Like, if you're doing a movie, I've sort of come around to, like, if a movie is just being weird to be weird, I've come around to, like, all right, maybe that's okay. If it's saying something. What this show is saying, other than, like, the woman wants to get away from the family, the man wants to get away from the family, like, other than, like, I don't know. There's just so many ways you can say it, and I don't need everything to be streamlined. I don't need everything to be, you know, A, B, and C plot-wise, but it's so devoid of any kind of, like, reality type of thing. It's just kind of way out there for me. So I think it's okay. I do think it's funny in parts. The voice work is fine. The animation's okay. So I'm going to leave this kind of right in the middle as well. I'm going to give Close Enough a C+. Up next, we have Little Voice. This is on Apple TV+. It is a romantic dramedy, I would say. Leaning more on the drama, though, I think. And this explores basically young people, you know, in their 20s falling in love and finding each other. The lead gal, Brittany O'Grady, plays Bess Alice King, and she is basically going into the music industry. She's trying to, anyway. She does, like, cover songs on her piano, but she wants to break through with some of her originals. She's having some issues with that. This one I watched the first 2 episodes of. This is going to be parsed out like a lot of Apple TV series. They put the first 3 up and then 1 a week until the season is over. So we'll see that here. But I think there's 4 episodes up now because it's been on for about a week before I even watched it. So I think there's 4 up now. And Sarah Bareilles and Jesse Nelson are part of the, you know, executive producer team here, and Sarah Bareilles writes a lot of the music, and she wrote, I should say, the musical Waitress, which is just, I mean, I've heard some of the songs from it, and I love Sarah Bareilles. She's got a great voice. She writes great songs, but at the same time, she also kind of has her own style. Like, I knew she was an executive producer. I wasn't sure how much of the music was hers, but when I heard this Best character playing the piano pieces, I'm like, oh no, that's 100% Sarah Bareilles. Like, there's no doubt she wrote all the music for this show. Here's another one that I'm a little more down the middle on. I think it's got a lot of good things going for it. The characters are very engaging. I think there's good chemistry here. The lead actress is very good. I don't think I've seen her in anything. Let me look. Brittany O'Grady. Okay, she was in the movie Black Christmas, which I saw, but that was a horrible movie, so I didn't really remember much about it. Alright, she was on a show called Star for 48 episodes. What is that? Oh, okay, that's that one that was on Fox that Lee Daniels did. That's kind of like the companion piece to Empire. Alright, well, I never watched that either. But so, if you watched that, you might know her, and that would, I guess, make sense that she would be the star of this, because that was a musically based show as well. But yeah, she's very good here. She's a great singer, and I am enjoying her sort of plight to become a musician, and I like a couple of these different guys that she's met along the way that are potential love interests for her. You know, it runs the line of a lot of struggling musician things that we've seen before. Like, it reminds me a little bit of Begin Again, the movie. It reminds me a little bit of the movie Once. So, you know, is it completely original? No. But I think the Sarah Bareilles touch, because I think this is maybe not autobiographical, but I feel like she got her start, at least in pop music, a little later in life than a lot do. Like, I feel like she was in her late 20s when she kind of broke out on the scene with her big hit Love Song, which was a huge hit, you know, all over the planet. And so I think maybe she's, you know, not that she's writing on it, but, you know, she's one of the producers, so I think she's maybe, you know, drawing from her own experiences on this, and it makes it a bit more authentic. It could be a little more original for sure, but yeah, I was definitely invested in these characters and would like to see more of Little Voice. I will leave it with a B. So finally, we have Unfiltered. This is another game show, and this is one I talked about in the TV news about 2 months ago when it was announced. Jay Farrow, formerly of SNL, hosts this, and it is basically a show that was designed because of the shutdown and the social distancing. So it is a masked singer type of show, in the way that celebrities are trying to guess who a person is under their filter. They don't sing. It's more of a Q&A. You know, the audience will get, you know, a minute or whatever to ask different questions. There's a few different rounds of it, and then, you know, Jay Farrow will throw something out there, or he'll do an impression of somebody that might know this person, you know, which is, the guy's known for his impression, so it makes sense if they're going to have him host. Like, for example, the first guest was The Big Show, and, alright, I don't do spoilers on the show. Spoilers for Nickelodeon's Unfiltered. The first guest was The Big Show, and Jay Farrow did an impression of The Rock leaving a voicemail for this celebrity. So, you know, that kind of helped the kids along. And the people that are doing the guessing, two of them I don't know, but they're apparently on the new version of All That, which I have not seen yet. And then Darcy Lynn is the other one who I know because of America's Got Talent. She was the little girl impressionist and ventriloquist. So she's on it too. She's so cute. And then the people, I wasn't sure who the people would be, because I'm in my mind I'm like, all right, it's a game show on Nickelodeon. Are these going to all be people like I don't know? Because obviously they're not going to get, you know, Demi Lovato's not going to do this show. You know, they're not going to be famous pop stars, I don't think. But so the two they had in the first episode were The Big Show and Ian. Oh, he plays Young Sheldon. What's his last name? Ian Armitage, who plays Young Sheldon. So I think, you know what, those are pretty good, you know, for sort of Nickelodeon audience celebrities. Those are pretty good. And two of the three on the panel each time got them. So, you know, it's not like Masked Singer in that it's an ongoing thing. They're going to have new guests every time. So it's sort of like, really like one of those classic game shows, a lot like the What's My Line. The end of each episode, they had a celebrity, and then the panel was blindfolded. It's a lot like that, actually, when they're asking questions. But it's fun, you know. It's cute, and they put filters on Jay and on the celebrity guests and stuff. You know, like the guessers, they'll put, like, if they're making a statement that maybe is kind of dumb, they'll put like a dunce hat on them, you know, or whatever. It's fun. It's cute for kids. If not that original, because of course Masked Singer is huge right now, and they're drawing, you know, from sort of other Q&A game show type things. But I think it's cute for kids, and I'll give Unfiltered a B+, which is I think the same grade I gave the game show on Disney Plus with not Sherry Shepherd. Yvette Nicole Brown, where the kids are trying to guess, you know, who's the liar of the two people. It's like they're the Disney Plus version of To Tell the Truth. I forget what the name of it is, but is it the big lie or the big truth or something? I forget. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Unfiltered is a B+. I think it's a cute show. So all right, that's it. I try to keep these to about 45 minutes, so here we are. So thank you for watching. I have a bunch of shows already in the can that we're going to put up. We've got a Dan Does Disney for Alice in Wonderland, with some shocking revelations when Joe and I did that, so that will be up in a few days. I've got Freaks and Geeks will finally be starting next Friday, or this coming Friday, I should say. We're going to be going through all the Freaks and Geeks episodes, hopefully one a week straight through. So our first one is going to be next week. And other than that, I'll be back with more TV reviews next week, maybe some new movie reviews. I'm not sure what's coming out in the next week or so, but we'll figure something out. And that's going to do it. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.